Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to episode 3 of the NOCN E to Your Green series. This webinar will introduce you to heat pumps. The Eat Your Green series is brought to you by FE Week and Educationscape in partnership with lead sponsor NOCN, who will lead the webinar today, with input from industry guests, Quantum Group and Daikin. I will shortly hand over to Graham Hastings-Evans, Chief Executive of NOCN, but before I do, I would like to invite you to submit any questions you may have through the question and answers feature during the webinar for the relevant presenter who will answer via the Q&A. There will be time for final questions at the end of all the presentations. I would like to thank our sponsor and industry guests and now welcome Graham Hastings-Evans from NOCN and invite him to commence the presentation of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. Hi, everybody. Hope you enjoy the webinar on heat pumps. I'm going to start, so next please, with a look at the overall landscape in terms of government policy in England. I know it varies a bit, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, but we'll concentrate on England. The government has two major missions which are important for us. One is that it plans to build 1.5 million homes over this parliament. That's really ambitious. And to make progress on clean energy, green skills. And for the construction industry in England, the government has made available another £600 million to actually fund tackling skills gaps and improving skills within the workforce. So that's really a great opportunity to help the industry move forward and to therefore help it in terms of the move to a greener and a cleaner environment. As part of that, jointly the government and industry have come together with something called the Construction Skills Mission Board. That is jointly chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister and by Mark Reynolds, who's the Chief Executive of MACE, and also the Construction Leadership Council. That's the employers' body recognised by the government. So under that mission board comes under the Department of Business and Trade, doesn't come under education. And business and trade also responsible for construction regulation, which arose out of the Grenville reports, and we're awaiting back end of this year something from the government as to how regulation of construction will take place, and that regulation will include skills. And as a result, there's been a lot of work done by the industry with the Department of Trade on something called super sectors, which is all about trying to bring up to date and make better the competency frameworks and the national occupational standards. So a lot of work going on there. DFE has got a number of things happening as well. So we've got the level 2 and level 3 changes to traditional old NVQs and technical qualifications. There's a curriculum review for 18 to 19, which will report the end of this year. They are redesigning how EPA works, important for construction. So that's all around how we assess our apprentices. And they've launched some ideas, haven't gone down particularly well in construction, about foundation apprenticeships. So there isn't a lot of buy-in from the employers on that in construction, but nevertheless, they've made that policy statement and made it available. We've got the new installation apprenticeship happening. What we're starting to see in the last 2 points, modular and stackable learning and the industrial strategy, again takes us back to the business and trade. On Monday, there was an announcement on the industrial strategy. There was an earlier paper that talked about 8 sectors being important for growth in the economy. One of those sectors is around green energy, so is about green skills. So that is our government priority. It's one of the 8. And the industrial strategy has 2 underpinning foundation sectors that they're going to concentrate on. One is construction, the other is health and social care. So that industrial strategy, which was announced on Monday, is making available, in addition to what DFE is spending, another 275 million for skills. And the industrial strategy document from the Department of Business and Trade has announced that from April next year, they are going to move jointly with the Department of Education to loosen up the apprenticeship levy. I think it's the first early steps towards the growth and skills levy, which was something a big important part of the government's manifesto to actually make available funding for modular and stackable learning, additional courses to support apprentices and support the apprenticeship movement and the development of skills. So that's really, really quite important. There's also been a report from the Business and Trade Select Committee, which it's a recommendation to government, so whether that be accepted, who knows, but that adults and workforce development, which is partly in DFE at the moment, should move to business and trade. So it'd be interesting to see those of you that are political watchers and waited to see if there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle, might want to remember that recommendation. Next, please. Something happened about 3 years ago. We really started to get involved with green skills, and I think at that stage people were going, what is it? Don't understand it, what's happening? So we did some piece of research, and at the same time Exeter College and a number of people in the southwest kicked off something. It was then called Green Construction Advisory Panel. It was an initiative that said, okay, it's really difficult to get any sense out of what the government's doing nationally, and it was. We can't see how to. Let's do a grassroots initiative to get things going. So together with industry, employers, independent training providers, government agencies, charities, housing associations, local government, brought together this broad church of local people, all the local stakeholders, and started to bash away at developing a local program to improve the number of people that had the skills necessary for a net zero world. And that initiative also engaged children. The competitions in schools, and it's been going now for 3 years. There's now probably about 4 times as many organizations involved as there was back 3 years ago, which is great. And it's really taken off. And it's very clear we're going to do what we say. So it's all very practical stuff. Next, please. Now, from that early days in the Southwest 3 years ago, we now have nearly 20 such initiatives kicking off around the countryside. I was at Sheffield yesterday with the South Yorkshire. I'm going down in a couple next week or so to Reading to kick one off there. And there's another kicked off in Guildford. So these grassroots organisations and collective groups are pushing together under that banner of the Green Skills Advisory Panels to make something happen really on the ground. Quantum is part of that. We have a national board, which you'll see a picture of. So we've got private training providers, we've got employers, we've got a real group of people that's trying to push forward these grassroots initiatives. Next, please. That's a list of where they are in the UK. Next, please. And we've actually started to influence other countries. So Malawi and Nepal is going live, and Morocco, we're in conversations. There's other. So the concept of localized initiatives to drive forward skills that are necessary for net zero is really taking hold. And I believe it's the way forward. We've got to get this to happen down on the ground. And part of that is around what we do with heat pumps. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the seminar, and I hope you've enjoyed the series if you've been linking into all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you. And if anybody does have any questions for Graham, please pop those in the question and answers section on Zoom. I'd now like to hand you over to Liz Howard of Quantum Group. Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Joe. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Right, okay, everyone. Hi, nice for you to all be here. My name's Liz, and I am a curriculum developer for Quantum Group. So I'm just going to talk today about our qualification that we hope, is going to contribute to supporting the UK's transition to a sustainable low carbon future. So the title of our qualification is Fundamental Principles of Renewable Technologies and Sustainable Energy. Don't be put off by the title. Some people shorten it to FPorts or for Port C. And this is our new qualification. So I'm just going to walk you through the development, the journey, and basically just give you a look at what the learners can expect from the course. So this is a level 2 qualification. So it's designed to provide, a solid foundation in renewable energies, and basically written at academic level 2, and basically goes across the core renewable technologies: solar PV, solar thermal, electrical vehicle charging, battery energy storage, and of course, why we're here today, air source heat pumps. And so we wanted to, amalgamate the theory with the application of practical skills and then the additional design element, really. And we created this because, we understood that, like, for full-time students, it's great for people who are in the building services or construction and engineering, any new entrants to the workforce interested in this sector, experienced tradespeople, employers looking to sort of future-proof their profession and their teams and meet sort of new regulatory requirements. There's no prerequisites, and it's a blend, like I say, a blend of theory and practice, and a lot of industrial relevance, really, in terms of like partnerships, working with manufacturers to just make sure that we stay up to date with these, fast-moving technologies. So this was a sort of stage of development that we sort of, I guess, addressed, as we went on this journey to develop it. And we knew that, we wanted to recognize that there is a gap, really, and a lack of those available courses pitched at level 2. So we wanted to deliver this and develop it with our industry partners. We worked with Daikin on a lot of this, and then the result obviously was getting it regulated through Ofqual with NOCN to sort of add to their suite of green qualifications. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the content now. So in the sort of layout of it, you have mandatory units. So in the beginning, you would talk about the, energy origins, existing energy grids, and carbon emissions and global emissions in the first unit. So the course is really broken down into this clear, why we're here, why are we in this mess, really, and what are we going to do about it? And just going into the history, really, of, fossil fuels and going into combustion and that sort of thing. So it's a really clear, there's lots of diagrams, lots of sort of elements where learners are getting involved in their own, questioning and that sort of thing. Like I say, it's very, very sort of clear. It recognizes the importance of that vocabulary recognition, because again, we talk about this with these words: net zero, decarbonisation. Do we know what they mean, really? So we've addressed the sort of, as in a clear way, those sort of misconceptions sometimes that come up, and just try to do it in a really sort of interactive, hands-on way. So it goes through then to unit 2, which is global warming, and again just goes through the greenhouse effect and that sort of thing. And again, links to sort of different infographics to just further explain those concepts, really, that can be sort of misunderstood. And it then goes into the sort of the nitty-gritty policy writing, all the things to do with, the Kyoto Agreement, Paris Agreement, and about just the history of that, really, and obviously keeping up to date with our government's targets and that sort of thing. And then, so in terms of the beginning of that is all the theory, and then it moves in to the practical elements. So it goes through air source heat pumps and covers the installation, operation and maintenance of the systems. Obviously at a level 2, it's an introduction. And then, but again, it goes through and breaks down all component identification in a really simple way. So, I learned a lot developing this. And I think it would, it's really beneficial just to break those sort of barriers down to the understanding. And this is also available for solar thermal, solar PV, and we call it the electrical ecosystem, which is the EV charging and battery storage. So yeah, that's about it really. And within that, you also have the practical tasks. So it just enables that learner to, take that application of their knowledge into that skill, but they can take different pathways depending on which renewable technology they are interested in. I think that's it. So that leads me to introduce you to Neil, who's going to go into the technicalities, I think a bit more about heat pumps. Thank you.
Liz. Thanks very much. Just quickly share my screen.
Thank you, Liz. I'd now like to introduce our second industry guest today, Neil Jarman from Daikin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just very quickly, is everybody okay? Can you see that okay? Excuse me. Right. Can you see that, Joe?
I can. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Sorry about that, guys. So my name is Neil Jarman. I'm the specification sales engineer for the Southwest for Daikin. And I'm just going to run through an introduction to heat pumps. Now, to everybody or anybody that's a bit more experienced in heat pumps, I'm hoping I'm not teaching anybody to suck eggs, but it's just a basic run through of what a heat pump is. So what is a heat pump? It's an efficient temperature management device. So it moves thermal energy. So with regards to heating, it's moving, or I should say, grabbing the energy from outside air and bringing it inside the building in heating mode, and the opposite in cooling. So from inside to outside the building. In the same way a fridge does in theory, really. Takes the energy out of the fridge and puts it at the back of the fridge unit. So if you're feeling behind your fridge freezer, it's always hot in behind where the refrigerant is working in the opposite effect, basically. So right now, the types of heat pumps, we've geothermal, ground source heat pumps, hydrothermal, water source, and aerothermal, which I'm going to concentrate on. Just very quickly on the geothermal and the hydrothermal heat pumps. Both of those are a little bit more efficient than an air source heat pump, purely because they both take a stable temperature. In the case of geothermal, from under the ground, the temperature is stable under the ground. And the same with a water source. If it's lake or if it's, again, boreholes, you'll get a more stable temperature from those sources. Obviously, air to water is affected more by the outside air temperature. So with regards to air to water, the actual, what we call COP, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail, is slightly lower than what you'll get from a geothermal or a hydrothermal unit. Now, the geothermal and the hydrothermal ranges, you can bore down, or you can literally have an array of pipework in the ground or in the water, as detailed there in the drawings there. So, yeah, the geothermal looks very much like the hydrothermal array of pipework. You need obviously a lot of land, and the capex on the geothermal is high in comparison to the hydrothermal, and the hydrothermal again is slightly more expensive again than the air to water heat pumps, the aerothermal. So how does an air source heat pump work? Well, it has two heat exchangers, the evaporator and condenser. If you look at the image there, in behind the grill there, you'll see there's a fan in behind. Well, the evaporator sits right in behind that fan. So basically the fan will draw the air over what is the evaporator, which I would almost say is a little bit like a car battery to a point, but with lots of refrigerant pipework within it, okay? And then the condenser is what is the heat exchanger, if you like, okay, where the heat transfer occurs. It also has the heartbeat, if you like, of the heat pump, the compressor inside the unit, the expansion valve, and obviously a refrigerant gas dependent upon what manufacturer What refrigerant? There are quite a number of different refrigerants out there. Our units at the moment are R32 refrigerant. With regards to Altherm, that's the Altherm 3. The Altherm 4, which we're launching right now, will have R290. But we're also looking at another product which will keep the unit smaller, another monoblock product like you see in the image, using R454C. Now, every one of those refrigerants uses or has a different GWP, so global warming potential. With regards to R32, it's 675, R454C is 148, and R290 is 3. So it's really, really low. So the dynamics and how it works, okay. The numbers you can see there, 1 to 4, they're all located inside that outdoor unit. So in effect, that outdoor unit, the heat pump, the air source heat pump, is almost like a boiler sited outdoors, okay. So you've got 28mm flow and return connections to the back of that unit, and that unit literally will supply your cylinder and your heating system, hot water, in the same way a boiler would, okay. So starting with how it works, all right. So with regards to a heat pump, you're basically pulling the air across the evaporator, which is basically increasing the refrigerant temperature from a low temperature refrigerant to a higher temperature refrigerant. Then the compressor, number 2, compresses it to a very, very high temperature where all the molecules are tight and jumping together. So it really does get everything out of the refrigerant within the circuit. The condenser then takes that heat, okay, and transfers it indoors via that flow and return pipe, okay, to your cylinder, 3-port valve, and your heating system. And then number 4 is an expansion valve. Now, I always explain the compressor as being like having a bike hand pump, putting your finger or thumb over the end of it and compressing it. You can feel the heat. The expansion valve is very much like an aerosol. So when you put your underarm on in the morning, you'll feel the cold. Well, what it's doing is basically returning that refrigerant to its original state. And so it's hermetically sealed. It's one continual circuit within that outdoor unit. There is no need for the installer to be F-gas certificated to fit a monoblock heat pump, okay? So yeah, 70% of the heat that's generated is free from the air. And as I said before, it works in the reverse to a refrigerator. So why are heat pumps important? They're very, very efficient. That's why. With regards to efficiency, if you input 1 kilowatt of electricity, you'll get, roughly speaking, around about 3.5 kilowatts out. So if you compare that to an A-rated gas boiler, literally every A-rated gas boiler is around about 90% efficient. So for every kilowatt you're putting in, you're only going to get 0.9 kilowatts back out, okay? Obviously, it's environmentally friendly. It's mostly renewable energy and there's no direct CO2. We've obviously got lots of pressures around climate change and the need to reduce CO2 emissions. There are plenty of incentives out there. The one I think you and I will know is the bus scheme, which is the boiler upgrade scheme. If you've got a gas boiler at the minute and it packs up tomorrow, you have a choice to make, and I'll go and tell you about that in another slide further down. But you can get £7,500 from the government, which is actually paid to the installer, and the installer would discount your install at home by £7,500. There are lots of other government incentives around social housing, but I won't go into those in any more detail. If anybody's got any questions, just ask me. So the drivers for change, the Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement, there are lots of EU directives. We've just gone down the route of Part L as far as building regs, and we have the Future Home Standard coming soon. So the measure of efficiency with regards to a heat pump, okay, if that graph I'll go into in a little bit more detail. So if you've got a COP of 4, that basically means it's going to produce 4 kilowatts of useful energy, okay? Bear with me, I've just got to go back 2 seconds, do apologise. If I knock myself out here, I don't know what I've done. 2 seconds. There we go. So yeah, with regards to the COP, it's always quoted at A7W35. Now, A7 is a 7-degree ambient air temperature and a 35-degree water temperature. Now, that's a perfect scenario. So if you look at any manufacturer's instructions or data sheets, you will see it always listed at A7W35. Now, we all get emissions or you know, we'll get how many miles we'll get per gallon at 30 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour, if you like, in a car sort of like brochure. Well, if you do 60 in a, you know, all the time, the actual emissions are going to be higher, and plus you're going to use more fuel. Well, the same applies. With this particular graph, when we do a design for a new build property, we always work on the basis of a 40 calculations. Ideally, if you look at the floor and first floor, you will see the coefficient of performance. All right, so you can see that with regards to the COP, it decreases with falling ambient air temperature and rising flow temperatures. All right, so I said about the 350% efficiency and a COP of around about 3.5 degrees centigrade. Go up to the middle orange line, you will see it's around about 3.5, okay, at 7 degrees centigrade. And that's the outside ambient air temperature with a 45-degree flow, okay. It lowers again if you try to work the compressor harder. If you've got 55, it's going to drop back down to just above the 2.5 mark. All right. COPs, they don't really say what's on the tin. Your best option really is to work your SCOP out, which is the seasonal COP. And that's done by dividing the total heat output by the total energy input, okay, over a 12-month period. So when it comes to gauging suitability for heat pumps, new build, I put new build is perfect. If designed properly, new builds, obviously the fabric within those buildings is far greater. It's really, really well insulated. So it's quite simple to do a design for a new build property. So yes, you're talking lower flow temperatures, but equally you're not got the heat loss in a new build property. But with regards to existing buildings, you've got to be very careful when considering a heat pump. From a point of view of actual money you would need to spend, if you do need insulation improvements, what type of heating system you've actually got at the moment, and what fuel is available. All of those things you need to take into consideration, because from a point of view of doing a retrofit install, a lot of properties aren't really insulated to the levels they should be. They don't have double glazing, etc., that type of thing. Really, it's a fabric first approach, we say, to retrofit, to actually installing your own system or having an installer do it for you, obviously. So yeah, you have to really weigh it all up, because if you've got a leaky home and it's letting air out, it's got to be airtight. It really needs to be well insulated, and that's up in the roof, etc., plus cavity walls and stuff. So if I can show you the next slide, if you look at scenario 1 there, that's basically the same property, 1 and 2. You've got a 90-meter square semi-detached house, but on the left-hand side, scenario 1, you've got unfilled cavity walls, single glazed windows. There's absolutely no loft insulation. You're working on the basis of having a 0.7 air changes per hour, the same as scenario 2. But the heat loss on scenario 1, with all of that heat loss, it's 10 kilowatts. If you've taken care of your 270mm loft insulation, cavity walls, and you've double glazed the property with the same air changes per hour, that decreases by 53% down to 4.7 kilowatts heat loss. So it just gives you an idea of how important it is to make sure the property, if you're thinking about your old house and thinking about having a heat pump, that you do take care of all those measures prior to taking, or applying for the bus scheme funding. Okay. I think that brings us to the end. If you have any questions, please message in the Q&A feature. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Neil. There are 3 questions for you in the Q&A feature, but there's also one in the chat. If you can just go back in the chat from...
Will be. Thank you.
Is that okay? Thank you so much. So thank you, Neil. Finally, I'd like to welcome Christopher Dean from the NOCN technical team. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Yes, I'm Chris. I'm the Product Development Manager at NOCN. And I also have my colleague Steve Muscroft in the background who will be answering any questions you have in the chat. So do feel free to put any questions into the chat and he will be answering those. So I'm going to go through now NOCN and one of the first things we did was look at some of the key skills gaps, the jewels out there. And that was obviously through our communications with the stakeholders we have and through our own research. And some of the key ones that we came across were design and commissioning. So there is a shortage of professionals capable of... So give me a second, my screen says I've not got a very good signal. Can everyone hear me okay? Because I've not got a very good signal. Yeah, so I've got people also not capable of conducting integrating controls for optimal efficiency. So that's the design and commissioning where there's a skills gap identified. Then the installation integration. So installers lack experience with low temperature heating systems, system balancing, and integrating renewable technologies with existing infrastructure, like retrofit, like we've just touched upon. And for our conversations with places like MCS, we found with the installation, one of the main things that installs fail on is the insulation. So current boiler programs they work are mostly contained within the house, but now external, they've got to pipe through the external walls, and most are failing because they're not insulating that pipework properly. So there's a clear skills gap there that MCS have identified. The next one is maintenance and diagnostics. There's limited experience exists in fault finding and servicing of heat pumps, particularly in hybrid setups. So at the moment, we're trying to get all these heat pumps installed. I think the number that keeps getting thrown around is 600,000 by 2027. No one's then thinking about the ongoing maintenance that takes place, and it looks like there's a clear lack of experience in doing that with heat pumps. And the last one that's not always thought about is customer engagement. So everyone's thinking about the tools and actually getting them installed, but no one's thinking about the interactions with the homeowners to ensure they're comfortable with the systems, to ensure they know how to use them properly and in the most energy efficient way. So there's a clear piece needed around customer engagement. So when we're developing these qualifications to meet these skills gaps, we work with a range of internal and external stakeholders. So internally, we are quite lucky that we do have specialists in this area, have got experience and knowledge, but they are now with us, so they're off the tools. They don't do it day to day anymore. So we do have to work with external experts to make sure that we're building qualifications that are fit for purpose. And on screen, you can see a range of the organisations we've worked with. Obviously, I'm not going to list them all, but you can see them there. And there are others around these as well. It's not just these. And with their help, we've developed a range of qualifications. Liz has already mentioned the award and certificate in the fundamental principles. We've also got a level 3 diploma in low carbon heating. There's also some short courses and an endpoint assessment as well. So we are an EPAO for the apprenticeship standard. So based on those skills gaps I identified before, we've got these qualifications do work towards meeting those needs. So in the design and commissioning, we've got the one that Liz talked about, so I don't need to say that much more. And then we've also got an air source heat pump installation, maintenance and system design short course as well, which obviously covers design within it. We've got the installation integration. So again, we've got the course from Liz and the one I've just mentioned. But we've also got the diploma in the low carbon heating technician, which was designed to support the apprenticeship standard, and it 100% maps to the KSBs in the apprenticeship standard and covers everything needed for a new entrant, an effective heat pump technician. Then maintenance and diagnostics, again, as mentioned, Liz's course and the other two as well. So they all do maintenance and diagnostics within there. The level 3 diploma in particular covers fault finding and repair as one of the key learning outcomes and the assessments that have been designed. And then we've got customer engagement. So as I said, it's not always thought about, but it's one of the key pieces. And the one thing Liz didn't touch on because she focused on the technical side of things is the customer service and communication is actually embedded throughout that certificate. So that's really good at obviously getting through that customer engagement piece. And then also the level 3 diploma in low carbon heating, that has fault finding and repair and obviously installation. But as part of all that, they have to do commission testing and handing over to a customer. So that is built into it, that they have to do those customer interactions and show the customer how to use the system once it's installed. And outside of those four, as already mentioned, we are an EPAO for the low carbon heating technician apprenticeship standard. We were actually the first EPAO to get signed up for this, and we were on there on our own for the first year or so. And the reason we made that decision is no apprentice can sign up for an apprenticeship standard until there's an EPAO. And we didn't want to disadvantage the apprentices and keep them all waiting. So we took the decision to join early to support the needs of those apprentices. And I think that's led us in good stead to be obviously key members of this industry now, and particularly in the apprenticeship. So as a result of that, we're members of the Trailblazer and have been for a year to 18 months now, which means we're in with the key decision makers of the apprenticeship, like MCS who chair it, and key employers making decisions for the future of that standard. We do have large contracts with several employers and training providers on this, and we worked with industry experts and particularly MCS to ensure it's fit for purpose and meets the apprenticeship standard. And then resources. So each qualification has resources. They don't have everything here. They've all been designed and tailored for the needs of that qualification, but there will be some combination of schemes of work, lesson plans, PowerPoints, learner workbooks and revision notes, tutor notes, additional reading guidance, and full assessment design. Now, by full assessment and design is all of our qualification assessment to test learning, but around that, our experts have also designed support for centres on how to set it up, how to run it, how to conduct it, and how to assess it as well. So they get the full package around the assessment of also how to set up and conduct them. So funding. So obviously one of the key things is how do we fund these? And obviously anyone that was at the ALP conference yesterday, as Graham mentioned, there is a reduction in funding. So there's several ways you can get it funded. So there are the boot camps, there's the moratorium application process, and there are your local devolved and LSIF funding pots. And as Graham mentioned, with the new industrial strategy and the skills levy, more opportunities will also become available. So do keep your eye out for that. And as we see packages available, we will put comms out there around what is available to support centres and employers around this. With the boot camps, we've developed several boot camps, 5 or 6 in this area. And underneath, I've just given one example. So that's the renewable technology. So on our system, it's called the NOCN Renewable Technology Skills Bootcamp. And within it, there are a range of qualifications and short courses. So we do have that level 2 award and certificate that Liz mentioned. We have an awareness of health and safety. This is a construction environment and health and safety is key. So we do have an awareness of health and safety course. And obviously a requirement of the bootcamp is employability skills. So we developed a short course around employability skills as well. And with these boot camps, there are schemes of work and delivery schedules of how to deliver them. And then individually, each qualification or short course will have its own support materials. So like, for instance, the fundamental principles has workbooks, handbooks, lesson plans, PowerPoints, tutor notes, and support guidance for setting up the assessments. The health and safety and employment are fully online e-learning courses. So that takes the burden off the teacher. There is an learners to take. Then there's a moratorium. So a few years back, the Conservative government set the reform of qualifications, which basically means a lot of our qualifications are going to lose funding from the end of the next academic year. And we have to go through a reform process to apply for funding under this new structure. But what that did is it left a gap for new qualifications, because with the reform, you have to prove that there's been registrations and that qualification has in the industry. So with a new qualification, because there's no footprint, it kind of left a gap. But when the Labour government came back in, they reopened what is called a moratorium funding window, which means then we can apply for funding for new qualifications. We still have to prove need at local level and national level and complete a full application process. But on the 19th of May, we did submit applications for 5 or 6 qualifications in this area, 3 of them listed on screen. And we're here in July if we've been successful with that or not. So again, please look out for comms through NOCN on LinkedIn and the website if we've been successful in those funding applications. And the last one is the LSIPs LSIP. So there's 3 key areas that might support that there is available through the local authorities. One is around investment in new facilities and equipment. So if you're running these courses in centres, they are quite expensive to set up the bays. So there is support there. Also, the MCS provides support to do that as well. I think it's a £10,000 grant. So also please look on the MCS website to support with that. The next one is the upskilling of teaching staff. So when obviously our conversations out in the industry, and it does seem to be a running joke, but it's a common saying that they have, that they're one day ahead of the learners. So the people teaching the course, because it is so new, they've not been doing this for years, they've not been teaching it for years, so they feel that they are only just ahead of the learners that they are teaching. So there is a requirement for teaching staff, and there is funding to do that. And then the main one that helps with these qualifications mentioned is the fact that there is funding available for the delivery of new courses and curriculum. And the last thing that I will be covering is our future offers. So showing you our current offer we've got, we've also got things in the pipeline for coming soon. So we do have a level 3 certificate in air source heat pump installation. We have the same level and it is in air source heat pump. And then we have 2 short courses, which is Train the Renewable Trainer. As I mentioned, there is a skills gap there, and Awareness of Renewable Technologies. Now, what that one is might be beneficial for is, and obviously anyone working in and around the industry, but maybe not picking up the tools that just need to increase their knowledge. But what we're also potentially thinking is for teachers on other subjects. So, it's like when your teachers, right in the past, maths and English, they had to start embedding it. Safeguarding, they had to start embedding it. Prevent British values, they had to. And now sustainability is the next thing that they all have to start embedding on their curriculum, whether they're directly related to green technologies and renewable technologies or not. So this course might will raise their awareness, their obviously knowledge around it to be able to improve their curriculum. They're just some of the things coming soon, obviously, to NOCN. So please look out for those. And that takes you to the end of my section, and I will pass back to Joe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. We've got a couple of questions. I'd just like to thank Liz and Neil. They've answered all their questions through the Q&A. I don't know if you can see it now, Chris, but there's a question. Does the NOCN course include F-gas qualification at the end of the apprenticeship course?
This is the contentious one at the moment. So we're actually talking with MCS, and actually Steve, who was on the call, had a conversation with MCS about this yesterday, about F-gas, about water regs, and about the electrical side of things, because the apprenticeship doesn't require them to have it as part of the apprenticeship, but obviously employers in the industry will. So as it currently stands, although elements of this is taught within the apprenticeship and taught within our diploma, it doesn't obviously end with the official certificate, but we are working with MCS to try and get it included within the apprenticeship and or within our diploma, which might become a mandatory element of the apprenticeship standard. So it's one of those, it doesn't currently, but obviously keep looking out for the information, keep looking out for the message, because that might change.
Thanks, Chris. And there's another one in the Q&A, which I've got time to read out, if that's okay. Is it possible to take the NOCN course while currently residing in Nigeria?
Yes, a lot of our courses are suitable for UK and international markets, and they are open to international markets. So that should be, which obviously depends on which one you want, but yes, they should be available within Nigeria.
Thank you. And I think that is all the questions. I don't think I have missed any there. There was a comment put in. I think this came in at the beginning of your presentation. That is air to air rather than ASHPS, but is that relating to something you talked about, Chris?
I'm not sure. Not sure if it was the question. Who was it from?
Question from Sue, if Sue wants to pop into the chat, and if she's got a question, we will absolutely make sure. That was for previous, so I think that was for
previous. Okay, yeah, fair enough. That's fine.
Okay,
Didn't think it related to mine. You panicked me there.
Okay, Neil, I don't know if you're there and you can come in and answer that one, if there's an answer for that one. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, if there are no more questions, very timely brings us to the end of series 3. I'd like to thank our presenters, our sponsor, and all our attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.